Are these illegal foreclosures a one-time accidental occurrence or something much more calculated and systemic? Fact.
Thanks.
U.S. Bank is being investigated for illegally foreclosing on 80 active duty U.S. soldiers, according to the U.S. Department of Treasury.
Shame!
These troops risk their lives for their country and are afforded basic protections from the banks under the Civil Service Relief Act. This law helps protect soldiers from foreclosures while in active duty. One more reason to move your money out of U.S. Bank. The Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act was written in response to the financial services industry role in causing the Great Recession we find ourselves currently in. The law was written to put some checks into the financial industry. Richard Davis mentioned one way that U.S. Bank will be able to continue making profits after Dodd-Frank is to delve deeper into the prepaid debit card market. Prepaid debit cards are exempt from fee regulations in Dodd-Frank. The main use for prepaid debit cards is to pay unemployment benefits. They are used by many states for dispersing unemployment benefits, including in New Mexico. For some states in the U.S., the only way to collect unemployment benefits is to use a bank-issued prepaid debit card. The banks then charge monthly fees for having and using the card, effectively transferring money from the unemployed to the bank's coffers. Fact. U.S. Bank is the second largest player in this industry. U.S. Bank has contracts with 16 states. Fact. This is what happens when bank lobbyists write the rule of law. Another response to the passage of Dodd-Frank has been the creation of a newly emerging payday loan market. U.S. Bank and Wells Fargo are the leading revenue makers. Banks for a long time have financed payday loan companies. U.S. Bank is taking the lead by making the loans directly to consumers and cutting out the payday loan companies. U.S. Bank's payday loan rates start out at 10% for a 10-day loan. Stretched out over a year, that's an annual interest rate that equals 365%. It's one more reason to move your money out of U.S. Bank. I understand there is a student that would like to testify today.
U.S. Bank makes money off of student loans, another government handout to the big banks. The student loan industry was recently estimated at over $1 trillion a year, making the debt taken out by college students this year larger than the total debt in the credit card industry for the year. Student loans are the only loan that follows people through bankruptcy. Student loans are a ripoff to the U.S. taxpayer. Banks loan money to students at a roughly 7 to 8%. The government pays all or part of the interest. The government could quite easily loan the money to the students and cut the banks out of the equation.
Yes.
The government guarantees the loans so the banks don't take any risk, but yet they make 3 to 4% off the loans from the government. This interest subsidy handout costs the U.S. taxpayers $4 billion annually.
Plenty of money. It's ridiculous.
That is a direct transfer of wealth from the taxpayers to large banking institutions. Federal loan requirements exclude small banks from this program. Another example a preferential treatment for big banks. When tuition for universities goes up, this impacts the students negatively by requiring they take out more loans to pay for their education. This enables the banks to make more government subsidized money through student loans.
This is indentured servitude.
Thank you, student, for providing one more reason to move your money out of U.S. Bank. Precedent. U.S. Bank is currently being sued by the Oklahoma Police Pension and Retirement System. U.S. Bank has been accused of breaching their contract by not fulfilling their agreement to physically verify that the securities they purchased for the pension trust were legally collateralized by mortgage loans. U.S. Bank's failure to properly ensure that the correct documentation was provided has caused the pension funds millions of dollars in damages. Another egregious example of U.S. Bank stealing from the taxpayer involves U.S. Bank repurchasing stock warrants from the government at a fraction of fair market value. The U.S. Bank stock warrants were purchased by the government as a way of transferring money to U.S. Bank when they were in trouble. U.S. Bank down the road repurchased the warrants back from the government. Fact, U.S. Bank paid $139 million to participate in the capital purchase program. The stock warrants they purchased had a fair market value of $260 million. This equals $121 million that U.S. Bank effectively stole from the U.S. government.
Shame!
Shame on them! U.S. banks are loan sharks.
We know that the stock warrants were worth $260 million when they were repurchased based on the share price of U.S. Bank stock on the day of the sale. The alternative to the U.S. government reselling the warrants to U.S. Bank at a reduced rate would have been for the warrants to be sold on the open market where they would have fetched fair market value.
Hey, is our U.S. Bank here in Taos, New Mexico, following proper procedure when they foreclose?
No!
Now, in Massachusetts, they lost a case regarding illegal foreclosure on 2 homes. They couldn't prove they owned the mortgages. Those mortgages had been improperly transferred into trust, and the court ruled that if the bank couldn't follow the paperwork chain, they were illegally foreclosing. 2 points here. The big banks are moving so fast buying and selling mortgages they can't keep up with the paperwork.
Yep.
Number 2, this case I just mentioned was so important, banking stocks actually lost a couple of percentage points because of it, so you know it's a big problem.
Yes. Yes.
While the big banks that caused this financial mess get bailed out, we homeowners, or ex-homeowners, have been left to fend for ourselves.
Bring out the guillotine.
Evil.
Thank you, foreclosed homeowner, for your testimony. In closing, while the big banks that largely caused this financial mess were bailed out by the government, we, the homeowners, have been left to fend for ourselves.
Thanks, Obama.
We as a community are strengthening our position by supporting local banks and moving our money from U.S. Bank. A year ago, the town of Taos did not have a too-big-to-fail bank. Now 33% of the hard-earned money of Taos residents is in a too-big-to-fail bank. U.S. Bank has devoted a lot of its resources to growing even bigger since they got bailed out in 2008. U.S. Bank is now the 5th largest bank in the U.S. based on assets.
Scumbags.
This is what they call security. The downside for we the people is that as these banks get bigger and bigger, the consequences if they fail become greater and greater, including the entire economy crashing down with them. The upside for growing bigger was evident to U.S. Bank CEO Richard Davis, who saw his salary double from 2009 to 2010.
What about Congress?
Moving your money from a large bank like U.S. Bank to a local bank is voting for Main Street over Wall Street. We can, as individuals, make a difference when we act collectively. If you don't like what U.S. Bank has done, do something about it.
Move your money.
Move your money.
By moving our money out of the big banks and into smaller community banks and credit unions, we help level the playing field.
Oh yeah, okay.
The more money we move out of too big to fail banks, the less likely they will be too big to fail the next time around. U.S. Bank isn't the only guilty party by any stretch. They just happen to have the honor of being the only too big to fail bank right here in Taos County. I strongly urge you to move your money out of any large corrupt banking institution, be it Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, Citibank, Bank of America, U.S. Bank, etc. They're all in the same boat. Another way that we can make a difference is by finding U.S. Bank Corp guilty of ripping off the American taxpayer. Since U.S. Bank is backed by the people through the Too Big to Fail guarantee, they should have to act in the people's best interest. Throughout the trial, we have shown evidence of how U.S. Bank systematically acts against the people's interests in the pursuit of profit. The prosecution rests our case.
Let him have it, Judge.
Hang him.
Bring him out.
How many people find the defendant, U.S. Bank, guilty of crimes against humanity and putting profits over people? How many find the defendant innocent? Aye, the guilties have it. Occupy Taos will present the results to our district attorney. We can't guarantee that he will act on the charges. But what is clear is that Taos goes on record for being against too big to fail and what it represents, including U.S. Bank. Today, we hold U.S. Bank accountable for their actions. Thank you for your participation. At this point, we would like to open the floor to the audience to air their own big bank grievances. And remember, you can make a difference by moving your money out of too big to fail banks. Not only can you move your money, you can discuss these important issues with your friends, neighbors, and family. Guilty! 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 Move your money! Move your money!
I just want to say I'm going to go over there right now and close my account. I already have moved my money into the credit union, New Mexico.
I would like to make a comment. Sold